for this prophet who would be like Moses. Now, these Israelites in the days of Jesus are saying, based on what we're seeing, he's the one. This is the one. This is our man. Why did they believe that? Why did they believe that? Even though the scriptures did not specifically say it, it was commonly believed among the many Jewish people that one way they would recognize the prophet Moses had announced was that he would miraculously feed Israel, just as Moses had in the wilderness. Some people even believed that manna would return to Israel when the Messiah came. Manna would come down from the sky. So when they see Jesus, who seemed like a bread factory and a fish processing plant on two legs, after they see him just feeding all of these people miraculously, and it happens twice, he fed us. When they see that, they're like, he fed us miraculously, just as Moses did. This must be the one Moses spoke of. So they became excited. But before we move on to verse 14, I want you to notice something. They were very impressed with Jesus because of what Jesus gave them, bread and fish in their bellies. And there's nothing wrong with what Jesus gave them. And there's nothing wrong with being impressed by what he gave them. But there's something here that I think is relevant to us today. They were interested in Jesus because of what he could give them, not because of who he was in and of himself, right? And I want to be careful because when I say this, because I don't want any of us to walk away thinking Jesus does not want to help me, all right? Jesus does not want to bless me. Jesus does not want to give to me. He does. Friends, he does. Jesus does. He loves you. He cares for you. He wants to meet all of your needs, both spiritually, physically, practically. Jesus loves to move in your life. But as we follow Jesus, we do not want to just fall in love only with the gifts he gives. We want to place our love upon the giver of the gifts. Why? Why? Because sometimes when we focus upon only what Jesus gives us, he may disappoint our expectations. We may have an expectation of how this is going to work out, and he may have his will and his idea and expectation, and they may not always align. I've known people who have said, if Jesus does not come through for me in this area, if Jesus does not come through for me in this, I'm done with him. I'm done with him. So we need to love Jesus and surrender our lives to him because he is God, because he is Lord of all, and because he is the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through him. I want you to expect God to move in mighty, mighty ways in your life and be grateful for every gift he gives you, but make this separation in your heart. Jesus, I do not want to love you only for what you can give me. I want to love you for who you are. Amen? Amen? All right, verse 15, John 6:15. Therefore, when Jesus perceived that they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, he departed again to the mountain by himself alone. And there's two remarkable things happening in verse 15. The first is that the crowd was about to take Jesus by force and make him king. You notice that phrase? The crowd was going to take Jesus by force, whether he was willing or not, and make him king. For a long time, Israel had anticipated that the Messiah would come. But the kind of Messiah that they wanted was not a Messiah who would minister to the weak and the hurting and the lost and the broken and the needy and the bound. They didn't want a Messiah who would lay down his own life in self-sacrifice. They wanted a Messiah who would lead a triumphant assault against the Romans, the occupiers, and defeat them and take back what the Israelites said was stolen. When they saw the miraculous power associated with Jesus, they said, this is our guy. He is our guy. Let us make him king, whether he wants it or not. And I can imagine many of Jesus's disciples hearing this crowd saying, "Let us make him king," and thinking, "You leaving? I love you." Many of his disciples thinking, "Let us make him king," and probably maybe even many of the disciples, like, they're saying, "Well, that's exactly what we've been waiting for too. This is awesome." Is that not partly, I mean, I don't want to assume motives here, but isn't that not partly why maybe they even entered into the disciple business? They thought that when their master was exalted, they would be exalted along with him. They were probably thinking, this is great. People are finally beginning to see that Jesus is the king and the Messiah. Now we can take on the Romans. That's why they were arguing to see who was going to sit next to Jesus. They're expecting him to be glorified as king and conqueror. Jesus, he certainly had the power to do it, right? If he can make a meal for more than 5,000 people out of small loaves of fish and 5 loaves of bread and 2 small fish, he had the power, right? Nevertheless, notice what Jesus did. This is the second remarkable thing in verse 15. Notice what Jesus does. He departed again to the mountain by himself alone. Friends, Jesus was not interested in fame the way that we think about fame in the modern world. Jesus was not seduced by a crowd that wanted to make him king. When they offered him an earthly kingdom, Jesus recognized that for what it is. It was a temptation, right? The devil had already offered Jesus the kingdoms of this world when Jesus was in the wilderness. Jesus said no to that temptation in the wilderness, and he says no to an earthly kingdom again here. And instead of doing what the crowd wanted him to do, he went alone up to the mountain to be with his Father in prayer. Jesus was more concerned about spending time with his Father than hearing the applause of the crowd and the cheers. Friends, that's a high and holy ground. Do you know, as followers of Jesus, we are walking on holy ground. We are walking upon holy ground. This is how Jesus lived his life in all things that he did. Jesus essentially says, I have a kingdom, but you guys don't understand it. I am a king, but you have not comprehended it. The time is not right. And it was more important for him to be with his Father than to receive the praise of the crowd. But that's not only what happened. Verse 16 and 17 tells us what happens next. 6:16. Now when evening came, his disciples went down to the sea. They got into a boat and went over the sea towards Capernaum. And it was already dark, and Jesus had not yet come to them. What we're going to see in the next few verses is a miracle, another miracle, and it's described in 3 of the 4 Gospels. It's described in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and John. This was the second dramatic encounter Jesus had with his disciples on the Sea of Galilee. You remember the first one, right? Jesus in the boat, asleep, while the storm raged around them, right? The disciples panicked and cried out, Jesus, you don't care that we're perishing. Jesus stood up and he rebuked the storm, and instantly it became calm, right? The disciples who had been afraid of the storm became even more afraid when they saw the power of Jesus at work. That was the first encounter. This one is different. This time, Jesus is not with them in the boat. He's not in the boat with his disciples. Jesus is up on the mountain praying. We know that he's up on the mountain praying from the other gospel accounts. What does he do? He sends his disciples away. So they want to make him king. He sends his disciples away, and he goes up to the mountain to pray. Why did he send his disciples away? I have a theory. I can't prove this, but I have a theory. I think Jesus did not want his disciples catching the let's make Jesus king now fever, right? His disciples probably thought, the crowd's idea, this is awesome. This is wonderful. Jesus said, no, you don't understand. Go away from this crowd that wants to make me king. Go away from this crowd right now that wants to make me king. The Gospel of Mark tells us that Jesus commanded his disciples to get into the boat and to go across the Sea of Galilee. He didn't ask them. He commanded that they get into the boat, leave, and go across the Sea of Galilee. So they get into the boat. It's dark. Many of these disciples were highly trained fishermen of the day upon this very lake. They knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing, even sailing at night. That didn't frighten them, all right? So they get into the boat, and they began to cross the sea. They get into the boat, and they began crossing the sea, doing exactly what Jesus had told them to do. Say that with me. Doing exactly what Jesus had told them to do. But in some ways, this second encounter on the Sea of Galilee was a little bit like the first. Look at verse 18. Then the sea arose because a great wind was blowing. Friends, I don't need to get into all of the geography of the Holy Land here, but I will tell you this, all right? The Sea of Galilee, believe it or not, is 600 feet below sea level. 600 feet below sea level. And it's separated by the Mediterranean Sea by a range of mountains here. So Mediterranean Sea, range of mountains, Sea of Galilee. When a storm comes from the west and sweeps over the mountains and descends towards 600 feet down below sea level over the Sea of Galilee, it comes violently. It moves intensely, all right? The sea can become like extremely dangerous on the Sea of Galilee. The wind can become extremely dangerous on the Sea of Galilee in just a very short period of time. On this occasion, the wind, just like the first one, is blowing really fiercely, all right? The wind was coming from the west, and the disciples, where are they traveling? To the west. The wind's coming from the west, and they are heading, based on Jesus' directions and commands, they are heading directly face first into this storm, into this wind that is coming, all right? The wind was hitting them right in the face in the boat. Let me just say, at this point, the wind is so strong, hitting them in the face coming from the west, they could not depend upon the sails of the boat, right? They have the oars out. They're like, remember us at the lake for 4th of July? We got the oars out. Imagine a huge boat going face first into a wind like 100-mile-per-hour winds. How hard that would be. So they could not they couldn't depend on the sails here. They had to row. That work was probably incredibly difficult. Then verse 19 says, so when they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and drawing near the boat, and they were afraid. So there they are. Again, picture it in your mind. Get the movie rolling. There they are. They rowed 3 or 4 miles across the Sea of Galilee. The 100-mile-per-hour winds hitting them right in the face. They're straining at the oars, all right? They were a little more than halfway to their destination, and they have been rowing for hours, and they've been rowing for all night. The story ends here. When the story ends, it's daybreak, all right? So they're rowing all night long, and they've been rowing into a strong wind, and they're just being tore up, beaten and battered by the waves. And it was probably extremely frightening. It was probably extremely hard, and it was probably extremely frustrating. Have you ever worked very hard at something and made very little progress? How frustrating is that, to work your butt off for something and not go anywhere, right? Most of us don't mind hard work when we can see some results pretty quickly, right? But hard work with little or no progress can make us very quickly frustrated, angry, and discouraged. The disciples were just getting beat up. Their muscles were straining. Their hands were probably sore with blisters, and their sweat. They were exhausted, and they're working hard. They're working extremely hard, yet they're not going anywhere. They made very little progress. But here's what I want you to understand. Why were they in the boat? And why were they going west? Because Jesus commanded them to be in the boat. and Jesus commanded them to go west. Can I share a sobering thought with you? You can be right in the center of Jesus' will for your life, and it can still be frustrating, painful, and exhausting. That goes against the way we sometimes think. We think, if I'm in God's will, everything is going to be easy. If I'm in God's will, everything will be happy and joyous. It'll be easy street. Friends, these disciples were right in the middle of Jesus' will for their lives, and it was hard. It was painful. It was frustrating. They were sore. They were tired. They were angry. They were giving their greatest effort, rowing headfirst into the wind, and it seemed to be accomplishing very, very little. But there's another detail we learn from the Gospel of Mark. Jesus is up on the hillside watching them, looking down on them and praying. Jesus was not with them in the boat, but throughout all of their hours of struggle, he hadn't forgot them. He could see down on them on the lake, and he was praying for his disciples. So he's up there praying, talking to his Father, and he's looking down and he's seeing the struggle of the disciples as he his will put them right in the lake and right in the wind. Then the time comes where Jesus then decides, okay, they struggled long enough, I'm going to go to them. I'm going to go to them. And in the way that only Jesus could, he took a walk literally on the Sea of Galilee to visit them. On this same occasion in the Gospel of Matthew, Matthew tells us that Peter asks, Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you on the water. Peter steps out of the boat and Peter walks on the water. Yes, it's only for like a few moments, but it's only a few moments before Peter begins to sink, but give Peter some credit there, right? Give him some credit. So I just want you to know, if you ever take me to a pool or you ever take me to the lake and you see me try to step out on the water, I do this everywhere we go. I haven't walked on water yet, but I'm still trying. So you will see me try at some point. I did it at the lake house. I do it at every pool. You'll see me try. Peter actually did it, all right? Give him some credit. Peter stepped out of the boat in the storm and walked on the water. But when he took his eyes off of Jesus and focused on the storm and the wind, then he begins to sink. John tells us that when his disciples saw Jesus walking on the sea, they were afraid. I don't think that they needed to be afraid. Where are they just coming from? Where are they coming from? In the other gospel accounts, Jesus rebukes their fear because he had already given them a reason not to be afraid. Where did they just come from? They just came from the feeding of the 5,000. What was left over after the feeding of the 5,000? How many baskets of bread? 12 baskets of bread. I don't know whether they took all 12 baskets of bread with them in the boat, but surely they had brought some of that bread into the boat. They had evidence of Jesus' miraculous power right there with them. This is corny. They had Wonder Bread with them, and they should have been able to look at the bread and say, Jesus, if you perform that miracle, you can perform this miracle. We are in the center of your will right now. We are obeying you. We trust you, and we are right where you asked us to be. Instead, when Jesus comes to them in an unexpected way, and walking on the water would have really been unexpected, right? They became afraid. So what does Jesus do? Look at verse 20. 6:20. He said to them, "It is I. Do not be afraid." I love that word. It is I. Do not be afraid. It is I. Do not be afraid. Jesus is saying, I'm with you. My presence is here. Don't be afraid. I'm convinced that that's for at least one person in here today. It's for one person in this is a word for someone in your present circumstances. You need to hear Jesus say, I am here. I am present with you. It is I. Do not be afraid. You've been worrying and becoming fearful about many things. Some of those things may be legitimate, all right? But you need to remember that Jesus is present with you even in the midst of your suffering. Jesus is present with you even in the midst of the storm. Jesus is present with you and he cares for you. It's always beautiful when Jesus reveals himself to us in the midst of the storm and tells us, "Don't be afraid." As I'm reading this week, it's not difficult to apply that to our lives, right? It's not difficult to apply this to our lives. This event actually happened on the Sea of Galilee, but it gives us a picture of how Jesus connects with us in our lives. Sometimes Jesus will send you directly into the midst of the storm, and you'll go into the storm through obedience, and you'll strain at the oars. You will become exhausted and hurt and frustrated and wonder whether anything good can come from you being headfirst into the storm. And Jesus says to you, in the midst of it, "It is I, do not be afraid. I am with you. I am present with you. Don't be discouraged." Your muscles might get sore. You may get frustrated. You're going to sweat, may run down your butt, but your hands might get blisters from being on the oars. But Jesus says, "I am with you. I am with you in the midst of it." Keep going. Look at what happens in verse 21. Then they willingly received him into the boat, and immediately the boat was at the land where they were going. They willingly received him into the boat, and immediately the boat was at the land where they were going. Friends, they may have been 2/3 of the way across the lake there. They had been rowing all night and making very little progress. They're sore, tired, afraid, and frustrated. But when Jesus came to them in the midst of all of that, what did they do? Verse 21 says they willingly received him into the boat. I'm sometimes just blown away by the gentlemanly reserve of Jesus. Jesus did not force himself. He walks all the way across the top of the Sea of Galilee to the boat, and he doesn't force himself into the boat. The disciples say, "Okay, Jesus, we receive you into the boat." Rarely does Jesus force himself into any situation. Rarely does Jesus break down the door and force his way inside. He is God, and he has the right to do whatever he chooses to do. But what does Jesus so often do? Stands at the door and knocks. He stands beside the boat and says, "Are you willing to receive me into it?" Even walking on the Sea of Galilee, he waited for his disciples to receive him into the boat. Today during worship, hopefully I didn't scare anybody, but it was very real for me today. For those of you who don't know, for a large percentage of my life, I traded one addiction for another addiction for another addiction. I started, out of high school, and I'd been introduced to Jesus, but I hadn't made him mine, and so I just partied really hard, and I traded addiction. I got into ultimately meth and IV drug using, and I just got into craziness and alcohol and drugs, and then I came out of that after I was faced with jail time, and in the meantime, I met Sarah. I started really drinking heavily, but I met Sarah, and we got married in the midst of all of this. And then we moved to Portland, and I just traded one addiction for the other. Then I got into the biggest addiction of my life, which was alcohol. Honestly, just drinking every single day, hiding it from her, drinking in the morning, functioning alcoholic, still going to work and everything. I got to the point where, at least half of our marriage, we get to the point where we had just done it our way. We had been, we love Jesus. We've been going to church, but I just was trading this addiction after addiction. I was trading brokenness after brokenness. We get to a point we get to a point about 12 years ago, 13, 14 years ago, where it's almost like I wake up one day, I'm an alcoholic, and I am losing my house. I'm losing my marriage. We're going to divorce. I have no relationship with my children. I have a horrible job. We have horrible cars. We don't, everything hit rock bottom. And while we're singing, My Chains Are Gone, it's just hitting me this morning. And I'm just like, oh, this is so real to me. It makes so much sense to me. And I just got really caught up in the worship and the songs this morning. And so I'm just thinking about that area of my life where the whole time Jesus is standing there, and I think maybe I thought Jesus was going to kick the door in and come into my life at some point, and he doesn't. He just stood there and knocked for 12 years. As we went to church and we didn't know him, as we did our thing, as we invited him to follow us instead of following him, and he just sat there and knocked and knocked and knocked. And only when I hit rock bottom, only when we came to the end of that, and I put my hands up in surrender and I say, okay, Lord, come into the boat. Come into my boat, Lord. Come into my boat. Come in. Jesus, come in. In that moment, I've never touched alcohol again. I've never been addicted to anything again. I've never done drugs again. I've never smoked pot again. In that moment, he freed me from everything. Every chain that I ever walked in literally hit the ground, and I've never touched it. In fact, if I think about alcohol, it makes me sick. It becomes bitter in my mouth. I can't even think about the taste of like a beer or booze or whatever. Like, he just set me free from all of that. And it was at the moment where Sarah and I invited him into our boat. Standing outside and knocking, and we said, Jesus, come on in. So he's standing there, and he's like, I would like to come into this, but I'm waiting for an invitation. Again, if some of you may have been waiting for Jesus to come and kick the door in and break the door down. Sometimes he does. Sometimes, but very, very often, he says, I will come to you when you invite me. When you willingly receive me into the boat, I will enter. So he comes across, and they willingly receive Jesus into the boat. And did you see what happens as soon as he enters? This is mind-blowing. This is another in a long list of creative miracles. Verse 21 says, and immediately the boat was at the land where they were going. Immediately. He comes in and they're there. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know whether it was like a horizontal rapture moment or miraculous transportation or translocation or something else entirely. I don't know what it looks like. But from the disciples' perspective, as soon as Jesus entered the boat, they were immediately at their destination. The remaining distance between the lake in front of them disappeared in an instant. That was a miracle of God, you guys. I like to put myself at that point, I like to put myself in the place of the disciples. I imagine being in the boat and saying, Jesus, if you wanted to get us across the lake, why didn't you just enter the boat at the beginning and take us immediately to the other side? Why did I have to row all night? That's such a word from my life. Why did I have to row all my life? Jesus, you could have just kicked the door out and got in the boat. Why did I have to endure all of this? The aching muscles and the sweaty brow and the sore hands. Why, Jesus? And you see the answer? And it's the same answer that we see again and again and again in the book of John, all through the gospel. It was not only about getting them across the lake. It was about what Jesus wanted to do in their lives and the character, the building of the character of his disciples in their life. It wasn't about just the destination. It was about the journey. I say this as your pastor. There are times when God in his ultimate wisdom will allow you to struggle. There are times when God in his ultimate wisdom will let you strain against the oars. That doesn't mean that he has abandoned you. It does not mean he has lost sight of you. It does not mean his presence is not with you. It means that there can be a good and even a sacred purpose in the struggle for you. He allows you to endure because there is a good and a sacred purpose. Why not embrace the truth and keep your eyes upon Jesus through all of that? Because when the time is right, It is easy enough for God to perform a miracle and bring us straight into our destination. Amen? Is that not what he has promised to do for us? Is that not one of his 7,700 promises for us? Does this not also give us a picture for our entire lives? It does for me. From the day we are born until the day that we pass from this world into the world, the heavenly world beyond, we will struggle. We will strain. We will press against the oars. Life can be a battle. And I'm not saying that we don't have good times and fun times and pleasant times. We thank God for all of those good times. But struggle is a part of life. Yet on the day we pass from this world into the next, we are going to open our eyes and immediately the boat will be at the destination. We will not have to wait. We will enter God's harbor, his heavenly kingdom, and we will be there with him in an instant. So for now, we say, Jesus, I may not know. I may not know whether you're on the hillside praying for me or walking right alongside the boat, but I welcome you into my present struggles. Say that with me. Jesus, I welcome you into my present struggles. I trust that when the miracle is necessary, you will bring me to my destination exactly as I need. And do not forget this, the disciples had something they needed to understand. They had something that they needed that would help them understand the miraculous power of God. They had bread in the boat. Would it not be wonderful if God gave you a visible sign of his love and his care? Would it not be wonderful if God could speak to you through a piece of bread and say, I love you. Look at the power. Look at what I have done for you. Is it not wonderful that we can now come to the table of the Lord and receive communion because he is speaking right through a piece of bread and right through grape juice? Bert, can you come do communion? Yeah. Okay. Let me get the microphone.
Life brings unexpected challenges to us. We are great one moment, the next moment. A storm arises to take us down a pathway we thought we would not go. Go down for a challenge. It's about to take place all within the confines of life. The Lord allows these moments to slow us down enough to get our attention so he can speak to us. Don't fight these moments. Embrace these moments as we guide ourselves enough to truly hear from our Father. Sorry. Sorry. These moments prepare us for what is about to take place right before our lives turns upside down for our benefits. Change allows the Lord to truly be intertwined with our lives, to take us where we thought we would be transformed into a better person. Don't fight the changes that come our way, as they are God's way of redirecting us to make us a better son or daughter. Whatever you are facing, I, the Lord, am facing this season with you to take you down to a better season of life. So, whatever we face, God is doing it for our purpose. Sometimes He has to get us to a place where everything and anything that goes wrong is all by His design. And we want to fight it. We don't really embrace it. But when we embrace it, He brings this stuff because He wants to get our attention. And sometimes we're going so fast, doing so many things we don't hear because we're trying to figure it out ourselves. He allows these things to get us, stop us right in our tracks, speak us to us, and take us to the next great season of life. So.
What we're about to do represents the epitome of sacrifice, the epitome of saying, Father, I'll do whatever you call me to do. That's what Jesus did for us. And you know it probably better than I do, but I tell you, it's amazing to think that we get to enter into the love of Jesus, but also the sacrifice of Jesus. So let's continue to rejoice in all things. Continue to walk out our love for Him and our willingness to say, Jesus, my life is yours. Do with it what you choose to do. And Matt, I thank you so much for your word, because you came to the end of yourself and you said yes. And that's where all of us are. Every part of the day, really every day, we need to say, Jesus, you got my all. I'm all yours. Use me. I'm yours. Just take me and use me, no matter what. And sometimes the struggle will be very deep and difficult. Matt, I had one too, not as serious as Matt's, but I'll tell you, all of us have been in that place where if we had taken the step this way, but Jesus is sufficient. He's powerful. He's all there. He's always loving. He's always encouraging. He's always eager. He does what He does for purpose. And so we do what we do here for a purpose. To say, Jesus, we're reminding ourselves that you gave yourself fully, totally, and we want to do it back. We say, Jesus, take us. And so we take this bread and we say, Jesus, we want to identify with your body. And we want to say our body belongs to you. Every part of our body belongs to you. So we take it and we eat it and we say, Jesus, help us to get stronger and stronger and stronger in you, through your word, through your spirit, through fellowshipping, through whatever means we can, but let us become obedient and fully given over to your will. So we take it and we eat it and we say, Jesus, thank you. Thank you for your body, Jesus. Thank you for sacrificing your body so we could do the same for you. That we take the cup and we remember this is the lifeblood. This represents the lifeblood that you poured out totally and completely. You gave yourself willingly. Yes, it was a struggle. It was a struggle in the garden, but you said, yes, I'm going to do it. And you did. And so, Jesus, we say yes. We're going to do it again and remind ourselves that yes is the word. Yes, all day, every day. Even when we want to say no, and we do say no, but no, we can correct ourselves. No, I'm not going to say no. I'm going to say yes. So we take this, Jesus, and we say a massive yes to you. Help us. Help us. You're doing that well. Help us, but help us more, and help us to walk in that unity with you, which we have, but strengthen that unity we have with you. So we take this in Jesus, we say yes to you. Let's give him a clap and a love offering together, okay? Jesus, we love you. We love you. We love you. We exalt you in Jesus' name.
If there are areas that Jesus has been walking by the boat, it's now is the time to let him into the boat in any areas of your life. This is part of my restoration story. When you let Jesus into the boat, you are letting the God of restoration. You are letting the God of restoration into your boat. And when he restores, he doesn't restore to where it was, because what he restored in my life, he didn't restore it to where it was because it wasn't very good. He restored it to where he always intended it to be. That is the resurrection. That's the restoration life that you are letting into the boat. He restored my marriage. Now, do you know how many marriages we have counseled and coached and helped since then? He has restored my marriage. He's given me a new job. He has given me a new home. He's given me new cars. He's restored all of my relationships with my children. He made us pastors. I never would have guessed that. I never would have guessed that, not in a million years. He has restored every single thing in my life to where he always intended it to be. And that is my restoration story. And I would encourage you, now is the time to let him into the boat in every area of your life. Let's give the Lord some praise. If you need any prayer, please come and see us. There's lots of food as usual. We love you all. So thankful that we could worship with you today. So thankful that we could hear the word with you today. And just let us know if we can do anything for you. In Jesus' name. I know what you said, Gabe. Love you guys. Bye.